TikTok. I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening and wanting to do the boots on the ground, rubber meets the road, however you want to call it, grassroots work for Florence County Republican Party. This has been a goal of mine since I've been with the party, is to actually work our precincts and get that information that we need. As you can tell, the first thing is this is impromptu the whole way through. Ray has been working himself silly, putting this stuff together. We've been really, I promise you, there's a lot of work. That notebook in front of you is pure gold. I cannot tell you the number of hours, the number of weeks that has gone into that notebook there. And I want everybody here to give Ray Kingsbury a hand. The Lord's given him a gift, and thank the Lord he's using it with us. And it's amazing. But what we're going to do tonight is each one of these notebooks is for each precinct. So not everybody has a notebook. The executive committee chairperson will be the one responsible for this notebook. This data is sensitive. A lot of people don't want you giving their data out to everybody else. So just keep it close. And the committee chairman cannot work all their precincts. Well, Ray, what's the biggest precinct we got? Glen Bonds. How many houses? How many? 1,200. Yes, 1,200 households. These lists that are in the back you're going to look at are households. Each household can have 2 voters. One of them has 7 voters in it. So there are more than one. So in there is that list, and the list that we're going to go over this in detail in just a few minutes. But I just want to thank y'all for coming out. Ray is going to kind of drive through this. We're going to be honest with you, I don't know about Ray, but we're going to stumble our way through this thing tonight. But we're going to do our very best to give you the tools to work your precincts. And I will say this, there are 3 things we're working on. We're trying to verify and validate the data that we have. Those lists, if you've ever called these lists, you know that they're only 50% correct. The phone numbers, some of them aren't there. We have almost zip-diddy-doo-dah email addresses. We need email addresses. We need good cell phone numbers, and we need to verify the address and the people's information. And then you're going to ask them other questions and stuff too. But that's what Ray is going to come up here and do, and I'm going to turn it over to him.
Oh, I guess we moved it, didn't we?
I moved your notebook.
Okay. Good evening. I hope everybody feels it's not too full. I hope you don't go to sleep on. Hope you don't go to sleep.
I don't know what's going on.
What's going on? There we go. I'll learn how to use this. Okay, a couple of things about what we're going to do tonight. Now, each of you have, each of the ECs has a notebook. In the flyleaf of the notebook, there's a copy of the instruction that I'm going to give tonight. There's 4 copies there. So take that out and give it to people who are here from your precinct. Okay, do you all see that? It's in the flyleaf. It looks like this. It's stapled, and it says it's a Florence County GOP presentation on grassroots canvassing July 2019. You all have that? Raise it up. Everybody's got one? Yeah. Okay, who? Oh, you don't have one. Well, get your EC to do so.
Do it, EC.
Okay.
Billy don't have one.
Right.
I'll give one.
Yep. Okay. Everybody has one. Now I want to start off by saying the scope of this training is different than what we had with Drew McKissick. I don't know what's happening here, but sometimes it goes in and sometimes it goes out. But the difference is, what he presented was about a 30,000 level view of what Grassroots canvassing is. And what this is getting down to where the rubber meets the road.
Just turn that thing off. Can y'all hear him? Yeah. Just turn that thing off.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This, so this gets down to where the rubber meets the road. This gets down to give you an understanding of what you're going to need in order to do the canvassing that we're talking about. Now, I've had the opportunity to go through this with about 4 different people, and every time I went through it, well, they were saying, you know, you need to add this. You need to add that. Well, I got to thinking before I got up here, I says, you know, if everybody here tells me what I need to add, we won't get through it. So what I'm going to ask you to do is on this piece of paper in front of you, if there's things you think we need to add or change or thoughts, ideas, I want to know what they are, but write them down so that we can keep going. Is that okay?
Amen.
Got a deal. Okay. After we get through with this, as we go through it, you're going to say, wow, that's too much information. I can't do that. More than likely, that's what you'll say. So we're going to role play. We'll pull somebody up here, maybe one of you, and maybe myself, and we'll role play what we're going to do, because it's not as complex as what it's going to seem. Okay? So we'll go from that. Now, one of the things that I want you to be aware of, on there, under the section, paragraph 2 there, A, it says there 24% of all voters are Republican voters in the 2018 election. 2018 election. You see that?
Yes.
Now, that's 20%, 24% of all registered voters. Now, that is including Republicans and Democrats. So, if you say, well, it's a 50-50, it's not quite, but it's close. That means that there's about 48% of the Republicans that are voting. Either way you look at it, it's terrible, right? There's a reason why we need to get people energized. It's a reason to have this meeting. Now, in addition to that, you remember us talking about vote harvesting? Remember us talking about that? Okay, so does anybody not know what that is? That's basically stealing votes. And I've put together a letter to the editor and about this. And one of the things, and do you think it could happen in South Carolina?
Yes.
It does in California. Can it happen in South Carolina? How can it happen?
By the people not intervening and doing our job, letting other people.
Okay, specifically, if somebody goes to the DMV, that's the Department of Motor Vehicle, to get a license to operate a vehicle, they'll ask you, have you voted? Or have you signed up to vote? Have you registered to vote? And let's say Charlie says, no, I haven't done that. So they said, well, you do this first. So let's say he's an illegal. So he goes ahead and fills out the voter registration, and on that voter registration it says, I am a U.S. citizen. But he may not even look at that. He just knows he has to fill out this piece of paper. That could be one thing. Or he may look at it and say, well, I already cheated the government once by coming here illegally. What's the difference? I'll do it again. As soon as he signs that paper and it's registered, he can go vote. He's an illegal. He's not, but let's say he is. That's how it can happen in South Carolina. So what could happen? What could what change would have to be made to avoid that happening? Verification. If we just required that it had a real ID, birth certificate, or some legitimate document, then that couldn't happen. But that's not the way it is. So what has to take place for that to happen?
The law has to change.
The law has to change. And who do we have to talk to in order to get that law changed?
Legislators.
Okay, and who would that be in our group? Who's our representative? Who would, that would be Philip. Okay, so one of the things that I'm going to ask you guys to do is to get to talk to Philip. He's going to get so tired of you that he's going to say, "I'll do it just to get it." And then remember what the Lord says, or the guy that had the knocking at the door and says, "Give me some bread because I have company." Well, knock on his door. Now that's one thing. The next thing is absentee voting. Look at that down there under C. If a person is deceased, it takes 8 years for that information to get from the coroner's office to the voter registration office. 8 years. So for that 8 years, our pastor over here, he knows all those people that he buried. He can go ahead and say, "Well, I'll vote for them. I'll vote for their conscience, regardless." Well, more than likely, our Democratic friends are doing that. Hopefully, we aren't as Republicans. But that's and we're told that that happens over and over.
Who do we go to talk to about this 8-year deal?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That really is absurd.
Well, to tell you the truth, I wrote a letter to the editor, and I identified these issues. And I sent a copy of it to David Alford. And I says, "I'm sending this as a letter to the editor." And so then that was on a Friday, and then I sent him a message and says, I would like to talk to you. Come Monday morning, I gave him a call, and I says, "I'd like to come and see you." He says, "You can come right now." and he says, "I read that thing." He says, "Everything that you say there can and does happen, but how often, I don't know. But you're going to cause me a lot of trouble if you put that out." So,
Well, that can't be that bad.
okay, what's the next thing that can happen? There's a lot of seniors here, right?
Yep.
And seniors can vote absentee, right? Okay, so if Cindy over here, she knows that Ray's kind of slow, so she goes ahead and she sends a letter to the voter registration office in my name. She can go ahead and get the absentee ballot, go ahead and send it to me, and then she can go ahead and confiscate it, and she can vote for me. And then when it comes for me to go and vote, they says, "You can't vote, you already did." Wow. That's terrible, isn't it? Okay. The next thing, we can request an absentee ballot for anybody for any reason. Anybody can do that. Now, it gets more and more complicated. If you're in a nursing home, it'd be a whole lot easier to get a whole bunch of names because the address is always the same, right? In the nursing home. So you can have them come there, and the majority, and I don't want this to be too unreasonable, but I'm told that most of the social workers in nursing homes are Democrats.
Yes.
That's true.
Okay? They're the ones that handle the absentee ballots, is what I'm told. Okay? That being the case, we need to be wary. Now, I'm going slow to get started. We got other reasons to be concerned. Have you ever heard of the Green New Deal? Okay. Have you ever heard of other opponent tactics that are going on and that we particularly don't like? So there's reasons for us to get involved. There's reasons for us to have our boots on the ground. That's all I'm trying to cover in this, and we'll go faster a little bit later. Okay, now let's look at our notebook. All of you who have a notebook in front of you, in the first section is a sentinel, and in the sentinel you'll see the information basically that I just ad lib. Okay, and then after that we get to the Florence County GOP tab, and under that you'll see our plan. Okay, go ahead, flip through that real quick, and you can see just a tremendous amount of data. Now, one of the things that if you remember, let me ask you to first of all turn to page 4. You remember you see what page 4 is? Page 4 is our vision statement. Okay? Page 4 is our vision statement. Page 5.
Wait a minute, page 4 is a letter to the
Is
editor.
a platform.
I said, you're right, platform. Well, we said our platform is going to be our vision. Okay, you're right. They're one and the same. That's really what we're saying. Our platform is our vision.
We're in the GOP section, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in the GOP section. Okay, turn the page, and these are the 3 overarching objectives for the next 2 years. Making America great again, turn Florence red, and organize effective campaigns. This is part of it. Okay? So that's super important. Now, this whole section is not specifically for the canvassing, but it gives you, I really want you to, when you take this home, read it, try to understand it.
Ray,
If you
can
need-
I say something
Yeah.
about this? What you're looking at in that section that Ray has put together is a treasure trove of information about elections, about the candidates themselves. It's got their phone numbers. If you want to know what's going on in Florence County, this is the document you need to read. So don't take the notebook home and not look at this information. We've been trying to give this information out for a while, but the document changes all the time because Ray does it. But there's too much of it there Ray's mentioned for us to go through. So please don't just pass that by. Sit down and read that and get familiar with it, because when you go canvassing, people are going to ask you some questions, and this section is going to answer those questions for you. Thank you.
Okay, if you look to page 11, there's a list of 15 appendices which we are going to be going through, and the majority of the time we're going to be spending our time on 11 forward. The things that are between the Appendix 1 and Appendix 11 is additional information, as Mike is saying, that you really need to have. For instance, Charlotte called me and she says, could you give me Glenn Baum's phone number? Well, it's in there. So, you know, there will be all kinds of information there. So, with that, let's move on. Let's go to Appendix 11. And we're talking about canvassing our precincts, and we're wanting to get this done between now and the end of the year. Now, Glenn Baum, he's here alone, and he's got the biggest precinct, So he's gonna have to get some other people to help him out, I think. Okay? Now, we talked about
Where's appendix 11 in the notebook?
It's on page
Under
45.
Grassroots.
Okay, where did it say?
Grassroots, I'm sorry, I should have said look at tab Grassroots.
Okay.
Everybody there?
Page,
Look at the next
Page
section.
45.
45.
Okay? Now, so between now and the end of the year, we want to go ahead and get these things done. Now, it's not going to all be done in one month. You know, it's going to take a while to get it done. However, one of the things we're going to want you to do is to feed back information monthly so that we can kind of see how we're doing. And if some areas need more help, and if some areas get done and they can help another precinct, you know, that's a possibility too. So that's something we'll make sure that we're addressing. Okay, we'll start with the grassroots. Oh, I got to turn to
Hey,
the
Ray,
page.
can I ask a question?
Yep.
I thought we were gonna pick a Saturday that we all go out and then we.
We're gonna
We'll
do that
we'll
later.
decide on that. Write that down.
We're gonna do that.
But that's going to be pretty much up to the EC.
Right. We're gonna
How's,
do that.
the EC is going to be the focal point for those kinds of things. It's going to be probably too hard to get 37 precincts to do it all at the same time. I think we're going to have to do it, you know, catch as catch can in order to get it done. One thing I'm going to ask you all to do before you go out and canvass, I'm going to ask you to pray. This is consequential work. It needs to be done in a prayerful manner. So let me encourage you to do that. Next, as Mike said earlier, we need improved data. Is that not right, Cindy? You're the one that has called the most, and we have some of the worst phone numbers that there are. Now, this data, for the most part, comes from the voter registration form, and most of us have filled that thing out years and years ago. And things have changed, and that's why it's not good. So, it's kind of exciting, I think, because when I went through this with David Alford to make sure what we were going to set up to do, because this is a big task, was going to be consistent with what he thought we needed to be doing. And he says, whatever you do, as soon as you get that done, give it to me so that we can go ahead and address it and get our database up to date. I think yours is right over here, Ellen. Yeah, I think that's your book. Okay, so our primary thing is going to be to update our records. And then in addition, we're going to talk about meeting attendance, membership, polling, poll working, absentee voting, and then personally investing for the upcoming campaigns. And then we have something that was suggested just today. We want to include in this is do some polling for our sheriff candidates to see who people would be interested in voting for, and we'll be asking you to send that information, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, I'm going to ask you all to let's talk about a couple things. Absentee voting. Look at, again, we're in Appendix 11, and let's look at page 45, and you'll see that we're talking about absentee voting there. Now, there's a fair amount of data there, and what I did is basically take the information that comes from the government, and then I abstracted it in page 47 in order to make it a little easier for you to read. Now, look at 48.
Ray, let me say something real quick. If you look at, page 46, I don't want him to jump over that real quick. Those are the reasons people can vote absentee. Okay, there's 17 reasons anybody can vote absentee. They're in this document, so you know you can go through to it. All right, go to 48.
Okay, that's good. Okay, 48. We talked about poll workers. Remember when David gave his presentation, he said he needed 250 poll workers. He hasn't gotten hardly any. Charlie and I have been trying to get poll workers, and we haven't been cooperating that much. We need to go out and try to get people who are willing to do poll working. Now, for a poll worker, it's a paid position. You get paid for training, and so you see the data there on page 48, and on page 49, you can see there's a script there that if you wanted to, Charlie and all, they asked me to put together a script for poll workers, and so I did, and if you read through that, then you can use that as you discuss the poll worker activity in the canvassing. Now on page 50, I put together some purposes of grassroots canvassing. And page 51, I've got a list of tools that are needed for grassroots canvassing. And I'm going to ask you to just kind of look at that. You don't have to study it now, but when you take it home, you go ahead and do that. Now, go to 52, if you will, and if you look at there, you'll see 3 different colors. Now, the one that's kind of gray is it's actually white, but it just looks gray. But then you got a yellow and a gold. And what do you suppose that means? Probably signifies something different, right? Age, right. Okay. Anybody who is a yellow or a gold can automatically vote absentee. The yellow is 65 to 79, and the gold is 80 on. And as you get into the details, you'll see that there's a lot of people in your precincts that qualify for that. Now, okay, we're going from there to, let's go to page 57.
Ray, I have a question.
Yeah.
If we're doing this, do we have to tell them what party we're doing this for?
I would say that I want you to wear this lamp.
Okay,
I want you to say that you're a Republican.
okay.
I want you to say, you know, what we're doing is we're trying to upgrade the data that is in the voter registration offices. We're also going to use that data within the Republican group, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, because there will be a lot of places where people have moved and so forth, and so a Democrat lives there. And if they give you the information, you know, put a D by the line, but go ahead and get their data, because we'll give it to the voter registration office, and they'll follow up with them. Right.
I have one question going back on the poll watching. I had a friend that I was talking to, and she wanted to know, do you know where you would be sent? Is it your local area you'd be poll watching for, or can they send
Poll
you?
working or poll watching?
Poll watching, yes.
Okay, poll watching and poll working are 2 different things, but the answer is going to be the same. It can be anyone. In the past, the poll watchers we assigned at the local level. That's a Republican issue. Poll workers are assigned by the election commission, and you'll need to go where they assign you.
But you can ask. And,
You can ask.
Yeah, and if they're full, they'll say, would you do something else? Would you work
Right.
somewhere else? So they
Okay.
do work with you.
Okay.
Okay, good questions, and we'll, we don't want to have too many of them or we'll never get through. Okay, next we want to look at some, in page 57, some promotional things that we've developed and some of the things that we're going to develop in the future. We'll refer back to this after bit. Page 58 and 59, we're going to be talking about fundraising and gaining